My name is Babatunde. I currently lead design strategy at Alveum, which is a tech company based here in Illinois. Whenever I get the opportunity to speak to people, there's something I always like to say. You guys don't know what it means to actually come out, turn up. It shows how intentional you are about your career and your future. I would like to say, don't stop, keep doing it, and I'm sure one day that fulfillment, that happiness you're looking for, that is if design is what you want to do, irrespective, design or not. Just keep turning up, keep showing up, keep meeting people, keep learning. There's a mantra I actually live by myself that I actually never let a day go by without learning something new, no matter how small. It actually compounds and build up, making you a much more better and quality individual. So yeah, good afternoon, choir build. So let me see, please can you go? Yeah, okay, the next one, please. The next one. Okay, so I think my topic has already been introduced. I'll be speaking on UX for low bandwidth, designing for emerging markets. So I'm sure you know, I'm guessing a number of us we are not maybe very familiar with what low bandwidth means. So I think I'll just be speaking on what bandwidth actually means. So when we say bandwidth, we actually mean connectivity, ease of users connecting to the internet, irrespective of where they are. So that's what low bandwidth is. So basically, the title says designing for people with low internet connectivity. You understand? UX for emerging markets. When we say emerging markets, we're talking about basically emerging markets, Nigeria, Ghana. I don't want to use the other word that's coming to my head, but basically markets where connectivity is not very strong. Given that there are different alternatives now, talk about the Starlinks, MTN FiberX, that guarantees very, very fast connection. The majority in emerging markets still struggle with good internet connection. So we as product designers, we as user experience people, how do we design with people with such issues in mind? Because when you talk about user experience, I think I was listening to a podcast a couple of days back. Although it's something I've always known, when most people, when you ask them what is UI UX, people will say, okay, UI has to do with user interface, UX has to do with the experience people have on the app. Yes, that's a good definition. But one thing I would like to point out today is that when it comes to user experience, it's not the sole responsibility of a product designer in a company. It's the responsibility of everybody. So let's even imagine you've designed a very good, a pretty interface, right? It has been pushed out to the market. But when users are actually using these very nicely designed products, for some reason they are pressing a button, it's not going through. That is an experience problem. They are trying to process a payment, the payment goes twice. That's the problem. That is even something beyond the UI person now. So, although I'm not saying this to point fingers to developers or anybody, when it comes to user experience, it's all our responsibilities. Please, can you go to that square? Yeah, so there's this, no, go back here, yeah. So this is a loader. When we see this, what actually comes to mind? Okay, I'll point, I think you want to answer, yeah. It is loading, okay. Anybody else? Low connectivity. Very, very good answers. In my 5-6 years of designing, you see this thing here, it's something I actually dread. It's something that I don't always like to see on screens. You see, especially this one is even better. It has weight in there. There's some platforms you interact with, and this is the only thing you'll be seeing. So I think, was it 2-3 months ago, there's this bank. There's this bank I used to use because I left them because of this particular thing. It's called, let me don't call their name. So I was trying to make a transfer of 300,000 to someone back then when I was still very much excited about cryptocurrency, buying coins here and there. I met a person on Telegram. Telegram actually has a market space. So, long story short, I had transferred 300,000 to the person, but on the final screen, it just told me waiting. Your money, it didn't even say anything, it was just loading. Not knowing to me, the money had already gone through. So what I did, maybe I should have considered the scenario better. I closed the app and I sent the money again, only to discover that the money had actually gone through. So this is not, okay, I didn't name the name of the financial institution, but I would say when it comes to user experience, that product was not designed very well at all. Because whenever you're designing, you want to ensure that at any point you need to give users feedback, you want to be as detailed as possible. You want to ensure that you carry the users along at every step. We'll talk more about this eventually, but yeah, next slide. Yeah, so some of the common real-world challenges in emerging markets please let's not forget the meaning of emerging markets, like I shared earlier. Some of the common challenges, when you think emerging market, just think Nigeria, because you are still very much emerging. So some of the common problems we do struggle with in this 21st century, slow connections, on stable connections, expensive data, and these are just few amongst the so many, right? When you're talking about slow connections, I think that's self-defined. Unstable connections, like these are common things that people still do struggle with. So you're designing for a product that will go into the market, that will possibly reach a million of users, right? You don't want to design like you're designing for people with only high-end devices with very good connections. You want to design a product that, irrespective of where people are, when they use your product, they're able to use it seamlessly. Right. There are a number of apps that I've interacted with in the time past, and it's been a headache. Even beyond loading, all those loading things, you see products with data-heavy experiences where to even load one page, it keeps loading only your data. It's not even able to load as fast because your connection is not stable. There are products out there that, irrespective of the strength of your network, it still loads. Talk about OP, talk about, and let me don't start calling it as if I'm promoting them, but there are products you use today and the experience is just seamless. You want to ensure that when you are designing for the majority. You're not designing for people with only high-end devices or the best of network. And there are ways you can actually design for people like that. Now, all these things I'm saying, it might seem like, okay, let me not really concern myself with this thing yet. Let me just break into the tech. Let me just keep designing good screens. But it all still comes back to user experience. As designers, that should be the very first thing in our mind. How can we design for people and ensure that the experience of what we are designing or building is seamless? So these are just some examples of some common challenges being faced in emerging countries. Yeah, so we have here where I said that, okay, if your app uses a user's data, you are being disrespectful of their resources. I think I actually posted this on my LinkedIn about a week back. You might think it's just taking their time that they will wait, but our attention span these days is actually very, very limited, especially when you consider that there are lots of competitions out there. Trust me, if I'm using a financial solution today, just like I did with that bank, if I'm using one financial solution today, you are taking my time, I'm seeing that you're not getting to where you want to get to on time, I'm going to the next thing. And that is the mindset of most people, considering the space and time you are in now. That's why you want to ensure that whatever it is you're designing, whatever it is you're building, is optimized for seamlessness. So you should always have it at the back of your mind that if what you're designing is, designing an app with a lot of colors, a lot of images, a lot of animations is good. But and that's when you talk about form over function. As a designer, yes, form matters a lot. And when we say form over function, it means when you are designing an app that the looks outweighs or the looks is giving priority over the actual experience. It's giving priority over what people are on the app to do. That's what I actually when I say form over function. If you are designing an app that is form over function, I think you've already even missed it. Because you want to ensure that the core issue you're designing for is actually being addressed and addressed seamlessly. So we also have here user. Okay, I think I already spoke about this a bit. That users will never see your beautiful designs if they cannot load it. Trust me, there are a number of actually very good-looking apps. I'll call this one. Okay, let me not call it. It's actually under financial institution. I actually use a lot of financial fintech apps here, and they are actually very, very popular. I'm sure they're one of the big 4 or 5s in Nigeria right now. The first thing, okay, let me give you a clue. The first thing you will see when you load their app is they'll show you this video of this lady walking into one. Come on, that is. There are times when I just load. I've actually stopped using them too, but yeah, those are some things that can actually hinder good user experience when people engage with your app. So, yep. The next slide, please. So, part of the things you want to ensure when also working on solutions is that you want to ensure that you optimize ruthlessly. On the next slide, please go to the next slide. Yeah, these are some common ways as designers, even beyond designers now, whether you're a designer, whether you're a developer, these are some of the common things you can do to ensure that whatever it is you're designing, whatever it is you're building, you are building into the consideration that you want to make it as fast as possible. So, some examples of some ways you can basically optimize what it is you're doing. So you want to ensure that you remove as much as possible decorative images. Yes, it's nice. Unless whatever it is you're designing or building is something that is a visual-based app. A very good example of classification of apps like this are whenever you're building for children, you understand. You know, children, they want to see something colorful, something engaging, something that will excite them. Yes, it's allowed when you're designing apps like that or products like that. You can use as much decorative images. But when you're building for adults, let me just put it like that, when you're building for a much more larger market, you want to ensure that you remove decorative items as much as possible. That's when you want to lean into minimalism. I don't know if you've heard of the term minimalism when it comes to design before. You want to ensure that your app is as minimal as possible. I already mentioned OPay, PalmPay, even Kuda, right? These are some examples of some very good fintechs that, an app, I didn't actually even think of this. One app that actually, when it comes to user experience, is actually very, very good. But when it comes to using a lot of decorative items, I think they top the chart is Duolingo. I don't know if you were familiar with the Duolingo app. It's very, very exciting. Trust the number of people that have tried using the app, but as a result of their connectivity, the experience can sometimes be very, very tricky. You understand? But I think what they actually do, Duolingo now, their team, is that they try to ensure that most of those decorative items, right, they try to optimize it as much as possible. And when we're talking about optimizing, what does it mean? So let's say you found this very nice looking image or media online. Let's just say a picture, right? For you to see a high-end picture online, averagely maybe 10, 15 MB. Most of us as designers, we do fall into the temptation of just listing that image, putting it into Figma like that and pushing. No. So this is how we can also optimize, right? Ensure that you compress that image as much as possible, right? You also don't want to compress and lose quality, but if you know you don't want to do compression yourself, you can always also inform the developers on your team that please help optimize this image so that the size of the app won't be too much. You understand? So that's one example of how you can put your app on a data diet. You want to ensure that you compress everything. I think I already spoke to this. Also, you want to ensure that when it comes to, I think this also speaks to, you want to use modern formats, use WebP. So this is actually a format for images. I think the most common ones are JPEG, PNG. PNG is actually very good. You want to ensure that, okay, if you see an image outside that you want to use on your solution, you want to convert them to. But this one is, I haven't always been very familiar with this one. I recently discovered it. It compresses as much as 80% of whatever it is, image or media it is you want to compress. So ensure you compress them with using modern formats. Use vector graphics, SVGs. SVGs are also one format that I also highly recommend when it comes to using medias on your app, right? Especially, I think the common use of SVGs are when it comes to icons, right? But the other things you can also, even you could convert, so you could convert a 10 MB image into 720 kilobytes if you're converting with SVG, right? It just makes life easier for everyone. It makes, in short, this is how you use images and media on your app that your Figma won't start hanging. I don't know if you've worked to that point, but so you want to ensure that you convert and compress as much as possible. You also want to limit, although this one is not, it doesn't really have so much impact, but when it comes to using fonts too, right? Most of we designers, like I've said earlier, we are really excited about when we do something colorful rather, something really playful. I would always advise, as a rule of thumb, whenever you're building or designing a mobile app, you don't use more than 4 fonts on the app. 4 different kind of fonts, right? Because it just makes everything look overly too playful and maybe a bit distracting. So you want to ensure you limit the custom font because they also have impact on the size of the app. So another thing you want to also have at the back of your mind, I think I mentioned this earlier too, you want to ensure that whatever it is you're designing, what happens when a user is using an app you designed and suddenly your network goes off? How do we handle that? There's what we call drop-off in products, right? And drop-off basically means a point where a user gets to and they just leave the app because they are frustrated. Do you understand? So how do you also handle drop-offs? How do you basically handle situations where users are not able to proceed, mostly as a result of network issues? You want to ensure that whatever it is you're designing for failure. What this just basically means is that, so a very good example would be, I think OPay too, right? Because let's say you're trying to transfer money, for example, or even before transferring money, your network trips off, you understand? it doesn't affect what you're seeing so much, right? You don't see, there's some apps where the network just goes off, the whole page will just change to error, no network. You understand? That will lead users to becoming frustrated. You want to avoid that as much as possible. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, yeah, you seem to be all okay. I think this is what we already just even spoke about. So please, next slide. Yeah, so you also want to ensure that you give users feedback as much as possible and consistently. Basically, I gave the example about when I was trying to transfer a certain amount to someone and the money had already gone. You understand? If they had told me maybe even something as simple as okay network issues, do not retry. There are some banks that you use that will tell you do not retry the transaction. Well, I left this particular bank, but I think that's something they did. This bank I was telling you about, how if you open the app, you see a video of a woman working. It's something they do that I actually was pissed off at initially, but when I thought about it, it's actually very good. So let's say you transfer 5,000 to someone, right? And you try transferring the 5,000 again to that person. They will tell you this is a duplicate transaction. You understand? It gives you time to reconsider. That's one way you give users feedback. If See, in whatever you do, avoid using loaders as standalone. Always accompanying them with supporting messages so that users and even the supporting messages you're going to attach, right? Make sure they are dynamic, right? An example would be you're trying to load something now. Initially, it can say loading, then then changes. It seems as if you're having network issues or connectivity issues, or it then changes. That's when it's about dynamic loaders. You want to ensure that you're always keeping the users engaged at every point. It's not that it's just loading and loading and loading, and you're assuming users will understand what it means. So yes, this is an example. I can give you 5 apps that does this off the top of my head, but I don't want to mention names. This basically tells maybe very popular apps that they've been around for a while. Right? I know none of them still use this, but they've really built their infrastructure in such a way that this wouldn't even show for 5, 10 seconds. But you that you're just building for an app that wants to start yesterday, and you're using something like this, and you can't even really beat your hand on your chest about your developers or the back-end infrastructure. You want to avoid using generic loaders like this. You want to ensure, like I just said, this tells users nothing. Some example of some products, I'm sure some of us would see this and I like to think we know where I took this from, right? This is a very good example of a product that gives users feedback. It's WhatsApp that actually uses this, but I know there are other apps like iMessage and a number of them. We know what does this mean when it's a message? What does this mean? Sent, okay, and this read. Okay, is it read or delivered? Delivered, sorry. And this one read, you understand? So you can imagine what they were thinking at the back of their minds. Even though some people go to their settings and turn off their read receipts and all those things, WhatsApp already done what they want to do. They are trying to ensure that users are kept informed at every touch. Okay, these are some apps that I think were built with optimization and with low bandwidth in mind. WhatsApp, right? Whether you have network or you don't have network. If you even send a message when you don't have network on WhatsApp, it actually goes, right? It's just that you just see that little sign there that you might be offline, right? The king of feedback, it's not flashy. Something I'm also very grateful to WhatsApp for, although there's some parts in the future that one day they will start having ads on WhatsApp. I think someone just came to my mind now, but I think it's a very simple app, nothing too much that is happening there, but it actually still works for people. You understand? WhatsApp is really doing good when it comes to this. It's actually YouTube Go. I think YouTube Go was actually available in Nigeria for a limited number of time before. It's no longer available, but I know in some other, I think in India and some other countries like that. Also very good. You have relationships with the devs on your team. You understand? We actually is actually an OG designer with and sometimes most of the time actually whenever I have animations that I find online or I create myself, it's not what I do. So I just pass it to him, you understand? So convert to chase. You understand? So what he then sends to me, right? He sends the code to me, what the developer to understand. So the code they will work with. Do you understand? So actually I think but in your case now you're seeing when you run out of subscriptions for platforms that you could easily convert to chasing. What you could do, although this might not really make what you are wishing as clear as possible, once you've created your wish or found your wish, because you are free to follow your tools or convert to cheap. But I personally don't enjoy using cheap or converting to cheap because it compresses the quality. So I think we just find a way to tell them to subscribe back to whatever platform it is. You said Lucy, right? That's what you currently use. I think there are a number of that. There are a number of platforms. You know what? Maybe I would say that so they could recommend a free platform.
Education. Actually, after I said so, please, there are a lot of